And just like that, we're entering the final week of September. As we look forward to October and all the new possibilities it may bring, I hope you stay safe and continue to adhere to the COVID-19 protocols. Welcome to Jamaica Magazine. I'm Theodore Henry. We have an interesting show lined up just for you, so stay tuned.
When your turn comes for the vaccine, please take the vaccine. It is absolutely important. For those who have hesitancy and fear, and all of that is legitimate, it's healthy. But I believe we have seen the vaccine at work. We know what the risks are. There are no risk-less activities in life. We urge you to participate in the national program and get vaccinated.
Though we're still living with the uncertainties of COVID-19, there is still another challenge, and that's the hurricane season. The Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management has put the requisite steps in place to ensure Jamaica is prepared. In fact, all angles have been thought of, including the modification of our shelters to reflect COVID-19 protocols. Find out more on this next.
Welcome to Get the Facts, the program that provides you with information on government's policies and initiatives. I'm Rose Campbell. We're still in the hurricane season, which runs from June 1 to November 30. This means that Jamaica remains on high alert for possible extreme weather conditions, which may require persons to move from their homes into emergency shelters. Do you know where to find the nearest emergency shelter? Are the shelters equipped to deal with COVID-19 protocols? Well, we'll get these questions and much more answered in this edition of Get the Facts. Our guest is Acting Deputy Director General at the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, Horace Glaze. Mr. Glaze, welcome to the program. Thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Rose, and it's a pleasure to be part of the program.
Good. So we are preparing shelters for this hurricane season, but we are also experiencing a pandemic. What do shelters look like nowadays?
Well, nowadays, considering the pandemic, COVID-19, we have to, take steps to ensure, infection prevention and disease control at our shelter facilities. And so that has been an initiative that we started last year for the 2020 hurricane season. And we have continued to do the same for this year, the 2021 hurricane season.
Right. So are there elements of the shelters that you never had before that you now have?
Well, the primary areas that we have introduced since 2020 is we have now introduced in the process identified isolation areas as part of the shelter arrangements at each of the facilities, and designated persons to actively monitor that the COVID-19 measures are being adhered.
Exactly. So I know you now have shelter managers, but you now have other people there, like someone who would inspect the persons in the shelterees. What are those?
Right. Yes, thank you. All shelters previously had shelter managers and a shelter team. You can imagine with a number of persons coming in at any one facility, just having a manager alone would be difficult to manage them. And so there is, in fact, a shelter team, an average, let's say, between 4 to 6 persons along with the shelter manager, depending on the size. Yes. But with the COVID-19 threat, we have designated as part of those team members a specific officer that is responsible for ensuring that the COVID-19 measures are adhered to by both shelter team as well as the shelterees.
Exactly. How many shelters do you have across the country?
We have approximately 867 shelters, and this is right across the island in all the parishes. All parishes have designated shelters.
Right. And now, since we're talking about COVID, do you accept persons who might be showing symptoms of COVID-19?
Right. Well, similar to how, we ask businesses and other organizations to put measures in place as persons are entering their facility. With a shelter activation, a similar process. So there is temperature checks on entering and sanitization. We ensure that persons are wearing masks on entering the shelter facility. And that initial temperature check is the initial screening. Now, oftentimes persons turn up at shelters at the very last minute when the rains are upon us. And so we may not have the opportunity to tell somebody, go and get a mask and come back, or your temperature is too high, we're not taking it. So that arrangement in terms of an isolation area is in place, where if the temperature is too high, the individual or groups of persons are placed in the isolation area, and the contact is made with the local Ministry of Health representative through the Public Health Department, and the shelter team is guided by them as to the next steps.
That is good stuff. So if somebody's in a shelter and they are now beginning to experience symptoms, they're coughing or they're sneezing, what should they do?
Right. So similarly, first of all, we ensure that there is physical distancing within the shelter. Families, of course, may be allowed to stay together, but generally speaking, there's physical distance for those persons who are not a part of an immediate family. Where these persons are displaying symptoms, of course, it is the duty of the shelter team, but in particular, the COVID protocol officer to check and monitor if this is happening and to place these persons in isolation space. Persons are also told on entry that if they start to display symptoms, that they are to report same to the shelter team.
Right. So
and once that is detected and they are placed into isolation, then there are procedures to immediately make contact with the assigned public health officer for that region of the parish, and they are then guided as to the next steps.
Right. So we want to encourage persons, if you're in a shelter and you have some symptoms, don't just hide it, because there will be no issues with the team at the shelter, right? So you can go right ahead and talk to the team. And there's a warden. There's
right
a warden.
Ahead and talk to any member of the shelter team, and they are open, very receptive persons who will treat with the matter appropriately. We won't kick anybody out of the shelter because they are displaying symptoms. That is part of the preparation and training of the personnel, and that is the sole purpose of us having isolation areas at the shelter facility.
Right. So do we have enough trained persons now for these centers, for the different shelters?
Well, all our shelter facilities, all 867, have trained shelter managers, and some of the shelter teams members go through the same shelter management training. Others are persons who are co-opted and just get some basic training as to what to look for and how to operate within the shelter space. However, they are volunteers, and like any other system, we have to constantly seek new members because persons may no longer wish to be a part of the process. Persons may be migrating, persons move to another parish. We do have that kind of attrition. And so it is a constant need for us in terms of finding volunteers to operate as shelter managers and other team members as part of the shelter.
Right, so the training is ongoing.
Yes, certainly.
Very good, very good. We're going to take a quick break now and come back with more useful information on how our shelters are operating in this pandemic season. Stay with us.
To properly carry out a hand rub, apply a palmful of the product in your cupped hand, covering all surfaces. Rub your hands palm to palm. Rub your right palm over the back of your left hand with interlaced fingers and vice versa. Rub your hands palm to palm with fingers interlaced. Rub the back of your fingers to opposing palms with fingers interlocked. Rotationally rub backwards and forwards the clasped fingers of your right hand in your left palm and vice versa. Once your hands are dry, they are now safe.
Welcome back to Get the Facts. We continue our discussion with Acting Deputy Director General of the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, Mr. Horace Glaze. Mr. Glaze, tell us, what should persons have in their emergency shelter bags?
Very good question. We often tell persons to prepare their emergency kits. And so your shelter kit isn't much different. You are to ensure that you have, first and foremost, your required medication if persons are taking medication, or if there's anybody traveling with you, any part of your family or friends that is traveling with you to a shelter that requires medication. Very important, especially in this pandemic period. And of course, your comfort items that may be needed. We don't have wonderful pillows and all of these fancy things you have at home, but at least carry the basics in terms of a blanket or other comfort items that you're able to use at the shelter. Food items, non-perishable food items, and water. Very important for you to take with you at the shelter facility for you and your family. Of course, in this pandemic, you must take your mask and your sanitization products with you for you and your family. And the other basics, such as if you are able to, your lanterns or flashlights and things such as that, to ensure your own safety and to hold you over for the period of the storm.
Right. Most important, they must have their medication, because you won't have all the medication at the shelter, right? So persons must ensure that they have.
Certainly.
Right. Yes. Tell us who should.
Your important documents as well.
Documents.
Your important documents as well. That you do not want to have damaged in the storm, left at home, or lost in the storm.
Yes. What you do not take to a shelter?
Well, one of the big things I want to tell persons not to take to a shelter is your pets and other animals. Unfortunately, at this time, the government is unable, as part of our shelter operations, to accommodate pets into our shelter facilities. And so we have asked that this matter not persons not to bring their pets into the shelter facilities anymore. Certainly, we don't want illegal drugs into our shelter facilities, and we don't want weapons of any sort, offensive or otherwise, to be taken into the shelter facilities.
Right. Persons tend to not like going to the shelter, but who should go to a shelter? And how soon should they begin to move? What are the signs that it's time to move to a shelter?
Very good one. Our first tip to our citizenry is that if you are feeling unsafe at home, whether you believe your physical structure is not safe enough to withstand the storm, or if you live in a low-lying or flood-prone area where you will be impacted by floodwaters and so on, then that is a trigger for you to take the decision to move to a shelter location. However, there's another thing. We encourage you, first and foremost, to seek shelter with your families and friends. Reason being is that we want to ensure that at the shelter facilities, there are few in numbers and provide considerable amount of resources to manage effectively and so on. And so we want to know and ensure that only those who really need this critical assistance from the state, it is provided. And so we encourage persons, family and friends, and if you're unable, then certainly a shelter is very close to you for you to proceed to that shelter facility.
Right. How can persons find out which shelter is nearest to them?
Right. There are a number of options. So generally at the community level, we have community officers who are trained, part of our community preparedness program. And so you can be in touch with your community disaster risk management volunteer. There's also your parish disaster coordinator, who is an employee of the municipal corporations. You can call your municipal corporation, ask for your parish disaster coordinator, and get the facts, so to speak, as it relates to where your nearest shelter is. Also, the website of the ODPEP has all listed shelter facilities by parish. And so you can find the shelter closest to you. We have recently introduced in 2020 also a mapping of these shelters on the website.
Yes.
So you can go to the map and you will be able to see which shelter facility is closest to you.
Oh, excellent. And we should do that before a hurricane, right? And have that in some safe place so you can find it. Yes.
Yes, certainly. Yes. You should do that before a hurricane. And you don't only want to know that just that one shelter closest to you. You'd want to know what are maybe 2-3 shelters closest to you. Should you be in a position where you are coming out late for the shelter and your road or there's something else that impedes you in going to the closest shelter facility, you don't want to be caught in a position where it is at that time you're thinking about which other shelter is close to me. So we would advise that you know at least 3 shelters that are within your area and you plan accordingly, which is the closest, and then what would be your alternate in terms of moving to another location.
Very good. So we are to know where timing, yes. Go ahead.
In terms of timing, so often a hurricane is what we call a slow onset hazard. Yes. So there's a lot of lead time because we are watching the storm out there in the Caribbean or out there in the Atlantic, and it's informing the public as it approaches. And so once you hear that a hurricane watch has been issued, or even a tropical storm watch, because not just hurricanes we should be prepared to evacuate, but also for tropical storms, depressions that may be passing, or other weather phenomena that the Met Office and the ODPEM tells you that flash flooding is possible. And so once a watch of sort is issued for any of those phenomena, a storm, a hurricane, a depression, one should be ready to evacuate. Or as well, if an evacuation order is issued for a specific area.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Glaze, for sharing with us on Get the Facts today. But before we leave, is there any other tip that you want to share with us?
Well, certainly persons in their communities must always be mindful of the various hazards around them in their community. One of the biggest challenges we have in relation to flooding associated with hurricanes and storms is the issue of garbage disposal and persons blocking drains and gullies and so on. And so one has to be mindful of the kind of hazards around us and as part of our daily practice, do our best to mitigate against these hazards and keep these areas safe. Certainly, I want to encourage the public to continue to keep safe during this pandemic. Continue to wear our masks, keep our physical distances and sanitize frequently. Always make contact with your parish disaster coordinator if you feel threatened or if you know of hazards within your area.
This has been Get the Facts. Our guest was Acting Deputy Director General at the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, Horace Glaze. For more information on COVID-19 safety protocols within our emergency shelters, please contact ODPEM at 876-906-9674 or visit their website at www.odpem.org.jm. Always stay prepared. Have an emergency bag packed should the need arise to go to an emergency shelter. Be sure to have your masks, sanitizers, and non-perishable food. Check the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management's website for the shelters nearest to you. Until next time, when Get the Facts brings you more useful information, I'm Rose Campbell. Thanks for watching and take good care.
It's the 11th staging of the JIS Heritage Competition. Students, show your national pride by entering the essay, poster and photo competition. Primary school students, enter the essay competition. Triumphant, proud and free. Use this phrase from the song Jamaica Land of Beauty to explain our nation's heritage and achievements. High school students, design a poster that best portrays the phrase triumphant, proud and free. And university students, capture a photo that depicts the phrase triumphant, proud and free. Submit your entries by October 31. Visit jis.gov.jm for competition guidelines. Triumphant, proud and free, the JIS Heritage Competition 2021.
As an executive agency, the JIS is transforming the way it provides news and information whilst serving its clients. Find out more next.
Good day, I'm Lorraine Mendez, and this is your JIS News for Tuesday.
As the agency mandated to deliver credible information on the government's policies and programs, the Jamaica Information Service, more popularly known as JIS, is very focused on fulfilling the information needs of the Jamaican people while satisfying the needs of its clients and stakeholders.
Salt Spring Primary and Junior High School students get learning devices.
Over the years, the JIS has evolved as a one-stop media production and public relations hub supported by a team of highly skilled professionals, sound managerial practices, and cutting-edge technology. This evolution is a demonstration of public sector modernization in progress, a journey which for JIS began in 2001 when it was merged with JAMPress, the then press agency for the government, and given executive agency status.
As a Model B executive agency, JIS is mandated to earn between 40 and 65% of its expenditure from fees, and this is generated through services which we offer to more than 200 ministries, departments and agencies, in addition to the core services which we carry out every day, which is the coverage of government's events and initiatives.
JIS is expected to be efficient and effective, responsive to customers' needs as it delivers world-class public relations, media, and computer services and products.
We have used JIS services in several ways. We have recently concluded our virtual conference, which was a tremendous success. And in that, JIS has assisted us in social media or brand awareness. They have created storyboarding for us. They have done all our videos they have done. And it was to the international requirement.
With customer satisfaction and service delivery driving its performance, JIS has implemented many initiatives to improve revenue, increase its presence, and modernize services.
The JIS over the years celebrated some key achievements. The most recent is our ISO 9001-2015 certification. We've been recommended, having successfully completed our Stage 2 audit by the National Certification Body of Jamaica. That's our most recent achievement. But over the years, we have been recognized by the Press Association of Jamaica. We have been recognized by other media partners. Our credibility and accuracy in our output has been appreciated by those media partners and our stakeholders. Our revenue, we have generated more than 200% in gross revenue, 78% in net revenue over the last 5 years.
Working at the JIS now, there's more excitement in what you do. Earlier at JAMPress, there's limitations in terms of what we could do and how quickly we could do it. Because of the new technologies that we're working with now, we're able to decrease our turnaround time, which allows us to do more work, satisfy more clients, which is good for revenue.
The JIS is balancing its role as an executive agency, improving its operations, delivering quality services while supporting Jamaica's vision.
JIS is ensuring that we play a lead role in informing Jamaicans and telling that story of Jamaica's development. We want to ensure that our citizenry is informed and better able to make decisions, also able to access services, the services of the government.
The Jamaica Information Service is performance-driven, client-focused, results-oriented, transforming and positioning itself as part of a modern public sector while keeping Jamaicans informed as the country moves towards becoming the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business.
The following is brought to you by MOCA, the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency with kind support of NIA and USAID.
Criminal minds think they are cunning. The major organized crime and anti-corruption agency have them running. Your friend a shout, come here. Take time running, are we ready for the ops? Drive up on your block, step out now me block, cyber take about your laptop. Pull up every lock, no evidence to drop. We put it in a cuffs and now we have the underground. Sin you say scam, you better look out for. When you move corrupt, better look out for. Please say you get wet, look out for. Look out for, look out for. From you say scam, you better look out for. When you move corrupt, better look out for. Please say you get wet, look out for. Look out for, look out for.
The proceeding was brought to you by MOCA, the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency with the kind support of NIA and USAID.
Polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS, is very common among women of reproductive age. Women with PCOS have infrequent or prolonged menstrual periods or excessive male hormone levels. Their ovaries may also develop numerous small collections of fluid and fail to regularly release eggs. PCOS is a serious condition which can lead to several factors including infertility, miscarriages or premature births, type 2 diabetes, and even endometrial cancer, which is cancer of the uterine lining. Obesity is also associated with PCOS and can worsen complications of the disorder. Though the cause of PCOS is unknown, it is better to be in the know regarding your status. So if you suspect something is wrong, get an ultrasound done immediately. Early detection is the best bet to help you control this illness. September is PCOS Awareness Month, and sometimes a little information is all we need to effect change. This is where the magazine ends for today, but if you would like to see more content like this, then visit our YouTube page. We also have all the latest news and updates on our social media pages and on our website, which you can find at jis.gov.jm. On behalf of the entire production crew, I'm Theodore Henry. Thanks for watching.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.